Well, hello, and Happy New Year to anyone who still has any perception of time. In the past year, I have watched 158 Netflix original films. Please do not ask me why I did this. I also don't know, but what I do know is that it put me in a life crisis big enough that I dyed my hair pink. My hair's not oily, by the way. I just took a shower, so it's still wet. In fact, not only did I watch all these films, but I rated them and kept my comments about them on a beautiful set of spreadsheets that I wasted a lot of time making. So since I went through all the effort of that, I figured I could make a video about it. So in my spreadsheet, I've sort of split them into 11 different genres. So I guess we'll just go through them one by one and, talk about the films of interest. But I thought before I do that, I would go through some of the fun stats about the films. So, like I said, there was 158 Netflix original films released this past year, and those films just came from a Wikipedia list. Sorry if I left any out. I rated each film out of a score, a total of 30. Don't ask why. The highest rating I gave any film was 24, and the lowest I ever gave was a 6. I can also tell you that the median score was 18.24, the median was 18, and the mode was 20. The film genre with the highest mean was dramas with 19.57, and the lowest was comedies with 16.55. I also plotted this nice graph where I plotted my ratings of the films against their current user rating on IMDb. And, you can see that there's kind of a bit of a correlation, cool. So without further ado, I'm going to start getting into the films because I suspect I'm going to be here quite a while. As a disclaimer, all of this is subjective, my opinion, blah, 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 whatever. The genres also I just sort of made up and I decided where they all went. The scores, obviously my opinion only. Everything I say is my opinion. Don't attack me, okay? So the first genre I defined, which is also the genre with the fewest number of films, is the musical genre. So here I basically put all the films where characters kind of sang in situations where normally people wouldn't just randomly start singing. There's only 5 films in the section, including the film of the new musical Diana about Princess Diana's life, which wasn't horrendous, but I just have no idea why anyone thought that was necessary or was a good idea to make. Songs were kind of catchy though, so pros and cons. Yeah, so there's not much to say about this genre. None of the films were really terrible, but there was one that was like way better by far than all the other films, which was the Lin-Manuel Miranda film Tick Tick Boom, which is based on a musical, kind of semi-autobiographical musical by Jonathan Larson, which you may know him as as a writer of the musical Rent, which is super famous. Yeah, and I just thought that film was really good. It did like a really cool thing of intercutting an actual performance of the musical Tick Tick Boom on stage with sort of the film of Jonathan's life, and Andrew Garfield plays Jonathan amazingly. The singing amazing, songs amazing. I was like crying at the end. It was good. Okay, now on to the second genre, which is historical. So this genre had more films. There was 13 that I put here in total. So here I kind of put any film that had a really like a period setting and that setting was important to the film, or films that were kind of based on true historical or past events and stuff like that. Yeah, so like I said, this is all like my opinion, and I personally really like period dramas and historical films. So again, none of these films I thought were like really bad. So 2 of the films that I thought were pretty good in here that I feel like I'll just go over quickly because I feel like they've kind of been talked to death, in the media. Everyone's been talking about them. So the first one was the Sorrentino film, the Italian film The Hand of God. I rated that film 22 out of 30, and I just thought it was aesthetically so beautiful and it was well paced. The characters, the details, the motifs were amazing. It had obviously its serious moments, but it had like its comedy as well, and I thought that was a good movie. But a that's not a unique opinion. The other movie I'm just gonna quickly mention is the Benedict Cumberbatch Western film, The Power of the Dog. You know, again, beautiful, good acting, aesthetic, good look at toxic masculinity in the cowboy culture. But anyway, the other two films I really liked in the historical genre were a little bit less well known. They're non-English language films, so I just kind of want to shout them out because I thought they were really cool. You may disagree if you watch them, but again, this is my video, my opinion. First film I wanted to bring attention to was a film by Mexican director Yulaine Olaizola. I hope I'm pronouncing that correctly. And it's called Tragic Jungle. So I'm not sure exactly when it's set, but it's you know, set kind of in the colonial era of the Americas. So it talks about a local woman who gets into some weird arranged marriage with a creepy white guy, and to escape the marriage, she flees with two helpers into the Mayan jungle, and they meet some workers in the jungle, and it's kind of about their journey of escape, and it has a lot of references and parallels to a Mayan myth called the myth of the Xtabal woman. I'm not sure if I'm pronouncing that correctly, again, sorry. It's a film with a lot of symbolism, you know, it's like one of those deep films. I feel like its focuses more on the symbolic than the actual. It doesn't really go for, you know, realism or anything like that. But yeah, I just found it super interesting, and the, you know, the cinematography, the aesthetic of the jungle is just beautiful. So, you know, if you are in the mood for something like that, definitely check it out. The other historical film, and actually my favorite one of this year, was the Polish film Operation Hyacinth, directed by Peter Domalewski. Again, sorry if I pronounced that wrong. So if you don't know what Operation Hyacinth was, it was a kind of secret operation by the Polish communist police during the mid-1980s, and basically its purpose was to arrest and create a database of all homosexual people in Poland and anyone who associated with those people as well. And obviously I'm not an expert, I'm not going to go into it, but it was just a really it was really brutal, dehumanizing, and a lot of people were blackmailed, people's lives were ruined, you know, it was not a good time. And this film basically takes place in Poland during that time. It follows a young police officer who kind of notices that there's been a few murders of gay men in the city that he thinks are connected to each other, but the police doesn't seem to want to solve it, and actually they seem to be trying to cover it up, so he starts to kind of investigate it on his own. Yeah, and I just found this film super interesting. I mean, it talked about a part of history that I personally had never heard about, and not only does it have like cool kind of crime thriller elements, but it also has like a beautiful emotional story, and the acting is amazing. So yeah, I definitely recommend that. Okay, so the next genre of film that I defined for myself was family. And there were 10 films in this section. So the films I put in this section were kind of films that were based around, you know, the family relationships and stuff like that, and especially films that had children or teenagers as major characters in them as well. Again, there was nothing like really offensively bad in this category. The film I rated the lowest was a Polish Christmas film called David and the Elves, and mainly that was just because the elf in question, Albert, just pissed me off so much. He was just so annoying that I just couldn't stand the movie. But you know, it wasn't like offensively bad or anything, it was just not enjoyable to watch. There were quite a few good films. Some films that I thought were pretty good were a Brazilian film called Double Dad, Yes Dave, starring Jennifer Garner, I think, and Blue Miracle, which I was kind of confused why everyone was speaking English because they were in Mexico, but you know, whatever. I thought it was a good film. So my two favorite films in this category I both rated 22 out of 30, and the first one is Finding Ohana, which is directed by Jude Wang. And this one's kind of a family kind of adventure Indiana Jones kind of movie. And it's about a family that kind of moves back to Hawaii from New York, where they've lived for a long time, and the kids kind of go on a bit of a treasure hunt kind of thing, and you know, it's just really sweet. It's beautiful. There's this one scene with a bioluminescent like underground lake, which I thought was really pretty. Treasure hunt was also super cool. I feel like if I was watching this as a kid, I would be like super into it. Probably like try to recreate it and like do a treasure hunt in my backyard or something. And yeah, what I thought what it showed about like Hawaiian culture and stuff was super cool. Not that I know anything about Hawaiian culture, but you know, I thought it was interesting. And but yeah, anyway, I really enjoyed that movie. The other family film that I really liked was a film called Mixtape. So this film actually takes place in the 90s, and it's about a girl whose parents died when she was very young and is kind of being raised by her grandmother, and she finds a mixtape that her parents made before they died, and she kind of accidentally breaks it, and she tries to go she has a list of songs and tries to go listen to all these songs to try to understand her parents and especially her mother better and become like kind of closer to that side of her family. And I just thought it was super sweet. It had this really cute friendship between the main character and these other two girls, and it had this sort of cool 90s grungy aesthetic, which was fun. You know, it was wholesome, it was cute, had some awesome music. Not everything made the most sense, but you know, that doesn't matter really. I really enjoyed that movie. So the next genre is sci-fi slash fantasy. I kind of put them together because there's not a lot of fantasy films. In total, there were 12 films in this genre, and there was quite a spread, I'd say. My least favorite one for sure was this film that came out like right at the beginning of the year, I think. It stars Anthony Mackie, Outside the Wire. Yeah, I just really didn't enjoy that movie. It seemed to be trying to push messages about drones and war and America and androids, and it just had a lot going on, but the message wasn't super clear, and just all the stuff that happened was a bit nonsensical from what I remember. And you know, the worst part is just the movie was pretty boring. I was just bored, and I remember the aesthetic being really like drab and boring as well. Yeah, I just really didn't like that movie. I actually wrote in my notes, and I quote, "This movie would have been better if America was nuked." Just to be clear, I don't condone nuking any country in real life. I just can't believe I have to say that, but there we are. In terms of films I actually thought were good in this category, I think there's three big ones. Two of them are sci-fi and one of them is more of the fantasy. So the first one, I think everyone's probably already heard of it, probably already seen it. It stars like all the big names: Meryl Streep, Leonardo DiCaprio, you know. And obviously that's the film that just came out at the end of the year, Don't Look Up. And you know, I love a good kind of satirical, dark comedy, political commentary film, and this one had that, and it was also heartfelt. It had its, you know, different moments. It was a real roller coaster, and you know, I just thought it was a really nice film. The other two films are kind of less talked about, so I'll focus mostly on those. The next film that I rated 23 out of 30 was a French sci-fi film called Oxygen. And the whole plot of the film is that there's a woman who wakes up like in a confined cryopod, and she's basically trying to get out. And I feel like it makes really good use of that like limited setting, limited character. It shows the claustrophobia of the pod like really well, so maybe don't watch it if you're actually claustrophobic. And like the reveals of what's going on kind of happen slowly, gradually through the film, and like you finally find out like what's really happening with her and like how she got there. And it's kind of wild, really interesting, and you know, I would definitely recommend that one. And the last film I wanted to talk about in this section was Hilda and the Mountain King, which is a continuation of the animated series Hilda, which is also a Netflix series, I believe. And it's based on a graphic novel, I think. I feel like this film got really favorable kind of commentary, and everyone is saying it's good, but the actual number of people who've watched it is kind of limited because, you know, it's an animated film, it's kind of aimed for children. People don't take that as seriously. But yeah, I thought the film was really beautiful. So I thought the design of the characters, the animation style was all like really cute. The story was really sweet, and you know, for a film that was only like an hour and 20 minutes long, it had like some pretty, you know, hard-hitting lore about like the whole like troll kingdom and all that stuff. And you know, I won't spoil it, but you know, the ending, it kind of got me. You know, it was really sweet. So yeah, definitely recommend that. Next genre was the action adventure sport superhero genre. I kind of lumped a lot of stuff together. So to be completely honest, like action films are not really my thing. I feel like a lot of films that have good action don't really have a really good plot, and films that focus more on plot don't really have a lot of action, so it's a bit, you know, it's a bit hard to balance those two in my opinion. There were a lot of like pretty average films in this section, just films that, you know, either the action was mediocre or the plot was mediocre or nothing made sense or it was just boring, you know, or all of the above. There were a lot of films like that in this section. There are actually quite a lot of like big name movies in this section. Like I'm just scrolling through. There was Sweet Girl with Jason Momoa, Beckett with John David Washington. We had Bruised with Halle Berry, Army of the Dead and Army of Thieves, the prequel. And also we had Red Notice with, you know, the triple threat of Dwayne Johnson, Gal Gadot, and Ryan Reynolds. Out of those, I think Red Notice and Army of Thieves were probably my favorites, because they kind of capitalized on that kind of excitement, adventure-y type action movie, which, you know, like National Treasure or Indiana Jones or something. And I feel like that's the kind of action adventure movie that I kind of prefer. Two films I like the most might be a little bit out there. You might judge me for one of them. One film I really liked was the animated film Back to the Outback. If you haven't heard of it, it's kind of vaguely like an Australian version of Madagascar, and it's a film geared towards children and families. But it's just so adorable. I thought the characters were just, they had such a great dynamic, especially the koala and the snake. I was unreasonably invested in their storyline, I'm not gonna lie. And the animation was beautiful, the message was good. I just thought it was a really good movie. I gave that one 21 out of 30, and I recommend it to like everybody. And the film I actually rated the highest in this section, which got 22 out of 30, was an Indian film called Jagame Thandiram. Sorry for the pronunciation. So the title is in Tamil, and I believe it translates to "This universe is a ruse," which sounds really deep now that I look at it. Quite a long film. It follows this one particular character, so it's kind of a gangster guy from Tamil Nadu in India, and he goes to London and kind of gets involved in the gangs there, and like the gang drama over there, and like there's a kind of this white supremacist gang leader there in London, and it's kind of not that I know anything about Quentin Tarantino, but it's got a very like Tarantino aesthetic vibe to it, very stylish, you know. It definitely wasn't going for that kind of realism, but it was like really slick and stylized. I won't say too much more about it. I was a little bit underwhelmed by the final battle. It kind of ended too soon in my opinion, but you know, I thought it was a wild ride. It was a good film. Check it out. The next section is the biggest section in this list, so it's the horror/thriller section, and there's a total of 26 films in this section, which is the most of any of the genres. And there was definitely a spread. There was some pretty terrible thrillers in here, but there were also some really good movies. So my two least favorite movies in this section were a German film called Prey and a Polish film, Nobody Sleeps in the Woods Tonight, #2. It's a sequel to a film that came out the year before. You know those horror movies or those thrillers where the characters are just so stupid and make like the most nonsensical decisions all the damn time? Those films were like that, and they just like pissed me off a lot. Plus on top of that, like the plot, or like the reveal of what was going on wasn't even good. So yeah, I just really didn't enjoy those. I will say though, if you want something unexpected. Maybe watch Nobody Sleeps in the Woods Tonight too, because halfway through the film, it changes into a completely different film, and it's quite funny. Hello? Okay, sorry, the camera angle might have changed. I just had to take a phone call. But yeah, so what was I saying? In terms of good horror and thriller films, I feel like there were actually quite a few that I enjoyed. I'll shout out a few that I thought were like pretty good, but like not the best from the section. So I liked Fever Dream and Woman in the Window and Things Heard and Seen. I thought those were all pretty good. I also really like this film Blood Red Sky, which is kind of like vampires on a plane. I really like that one. Check it out. One that I think everyone probably already knows about and probably has already seen is the Fear Street trilogy. They came out, it's like 3 movies. They came out like one a week for 3 weeks. I thought they did this super cool, like nostalgic kind of slasher stuff, but with a really nice emotional story, cool lore. I thought everything was really cool. Aesthetic, beautiful. Yeah, I don't want to talk about that too much. I feel like, you know, it's been done. The other 3 films are kind of less well known, and they're also not very highly rated on IMDb, so I feel like maybe it's just a matter of taste. Like, I really liked them, other people maybe didn't. So the first one is a Polish thriller film called Prime Time. It's about a guy who hijacks like a news station and kind of holds the presenters hostage, and you like, it's really tense and you don't know why he's doing it, and I don't know. I feel like I do get why some people think it's like boring, but I thought it was really well done in terms of the tension, and I thought it was really interesting. So, you know, maybe you can have a look and make your own opinions about that, but I really liked it. The next film was a Korean sort of horror film called The Eighth Night, and let me just read you like the blurb description of it on Netflix, because that already is enough to sell me on it. The synopsis reads: with prayer beads in one hand and an axe in the other, a monk hunts down a millennia-old spirit that's possessing humans and unleashing hell on earth. It's another one of those films that I feel like is trying to be really like symbolic and has a lot of meaning behind it. I didn't get any of that meaning when I was actually watching it. I just thought it was like what was going on was kind of cool and mysterious, and I didn't really know what was going on. There were some like dodgy kind of low budget filters, but there was also like some really aesthetic stuff. But overall, I just really liked the movie. I thought it was cool. I thought it was interesting. Had cool like mythology, even though I didn't know what was going on. Other people don't seem to like it as much as me, but I don't know. Check it out. The last film I want to talk about in this section is the Thai film The Whole Truth. Already the title is a pun, which, you know, plus a million points in my book. Whole being like the whole truth, as in all the truth, but also the whole truth, the truth about the whole. It's about 2 teenage kids that move into their grandparents' house when their mom is in the hospital, and they see a mysterious hole in the wall that their grandfather can't see, and it's hiding all the family secrets and stuff. The film does look kind of low budget, like you can see the effects are not the slickest, and the CGI blood was a decision. But yeah, I just thought the film had a really good mystery to it. It was super engaging. It had like a lot of good payoffs to the mysteries as well. I thought it was like a nice look at the kind of sinister secrets that can hide behind the facade of a normal family. Yeah, I feel like I can't say much more without spoiling the whole thing, so I'm gonna stop there. But yeah, I definitely recommend that one. Well, here it is, the one you've been waiting for. So the next section is the genre rom-coms. So surprisingly, I thought this was going to be like the most populous genre on this list, because I just feel like rom-coms seem like they're everywhere all over Netflix, but surprisingly, it wasn't. There's actually only 24 films in this section, which makes it the second biggest genre. I'm not saying like I could do better or anything like that, but I feel like to make like an okay rom-com isn't that difficult, but to make one that's like really good and stands out is like, there's just so many rom-coms out there. It's like, how are you going to be original? So most of the films in this section I kind of just thought were, you know, they were decent rom-coms, they were okay, but there was nothing like special about them. There were a couple that were like really offensively bad. So one film that kind of everyone talked about the moment it came out was He's All That, starring Addison Rae. I feel like I probably don't need to say a single thing about that. You can search the hundreds of scathing, hilarious reviews on YouTube. But to be honest though, I kind of enjoyed it, kind of like in a too bad it's good kind of way. Like I actually thought it was bad enough that I had a good time watching it. But that being said, it wasn't a good movie. There were also a couple of like rom-com sequels. So there was like The Kissing Booth 3, The Princess Switch 3. I thought both of those were The Princess Switch was definitely better in my book than The Kissing Booth 3. The Kissing Booth 3 was just like all the characters were so annoying and unlikable in that. I haven't seen the first two films in either of those franchises, but just based on these third films, The Princess Switch is definitely better, but I mean, that's not saying much. Neither of them are great at all. The sequel that I did think was pretty good actually was the third installment in the To All the Boys I Loved Before series, the To All the Boys Always and Forever. I don't know if I'm biased because I've actually seen the first two films in this franchise, but I thought this film was of a higher quality. I just feel like the relationships feel, you know, realistic, more organic, healthy, like people aren't being horrible and stupid for no reason. The only other rom-com that I gave 22 was a Spanish film, Crazy About Her. The premise is that there's a guy, he meets a girl, guy falls for girl, guy goes to find girl, turns out she's an inpatient in a psychiatric facility and she had snuck out for the night to meet him and then pretends to be in need of psychiatric help to get himself admitted into that facility to be close to her again. Based just on that description, this could have been a terrible idea for a film, but I actually thought it turned out really wholesome, really heartfelt. The humor was good. It didn't like make fun of people with mental health problems. You weren't laughing at them, you were laughing with them, you know, and I just thought it was a really refreshing and, you know, kind of a different rom-com. I thought it was cute. I think you should check it out. The next genre is what I've called dramedy. I know a lot of people hate that word, but I mean, it's faster to say than comedy drama. So these are kind of films that were kind of drama films, but they had like a more lighthearted vibe, or they had like more humorous elements. So I put them in this separate section, and there was like 10 of these films in total. Again, there were a lot of like meh films. I feel like that's a trend at this point for these Netflix originals. The worst one in this section, I'd say, is this Brazilian film called Luli. I'm actually really sad that this film was bad because I feel like the premise could have been a really good film. It's about a med student who's, you know, a little bit brash, a little bit insensitive at times, and she accidentally gets zapped by an MRI machine, and after that she gains the ability to hear people's thoughts. But the main character was just kind of unlikable. The whole film felt really rushed. There were a lot of things that were kind of like brought up but then let slip, and I felt like in the end the whole mind reading plot was kind of irrelevant to the story. So yeah, that was like a big disappointment for me. On the other hand, there were two films that I actually thought were pretty good in this section. The first was the film The Starling, starring Melissa McCarthy. I actually just watched this film today, so it's still fresh in my memory. But I actually thought this film was actually really emotionally poignant. It really had that good balance between the heartfelt moments and the humorous moments. It kind of weaved in the humor in a way that felt realistic, for a way like people would use humor to kind of cope with grief. One thing I was a bit iffy about was that one of the characters who has depression and is in a mental health facility, he's prescribed some medication, but he never takes it. He kind of pretends to take it, you know. And I'm not sure how I feel about the way they portrayed that, you know. I mean, I personally also have depression and I take, you know, antidepressants and all that, and I'm not sure, I don't know if it seems to be promoting not taking your meds or what, because I mean, like, if you really need your meds, you should take them if you've been prescribed. But I don't know, I guess it's open to interpretation. That bit I was a bit iffy about, but overall the film I thought was great. The CGI bird, a little bit less great, but you know, it's charming. I thought it was cute. The other film in this category I really liked was the Victoria Justice film Afterlife of the Party. If you don't know this film, it's kind of about like a self-absorbed party girl character, and she dies. And in the afterlife, she meets an angel who says that she needs to basically make some amends, or else she's gonna go to hell. And the ensuing film is her trying to make those amends. Yeah, so I thought that was quite an interesting setup. The plot's like not very shocking, like it's pretty predictable. Once all the pieces are in place, you kind of know what's going to happen, but the way it's done is really nice, I think. And like the emotional story, I thought was done really well. I thought all the characters were charming and sweet and likable, and there was great chemistry between all the actors, which I thought was really nice. And you know, I was crying by the end. So yeah, I really liked the film. That might be a controversial opinion, I'm not sure, but okay, on to comedy. So there were 11 films in this section. So these are films that are like fully committed to that comedy. Right off the bat, straight comedy isn't really my genre. For me personally, films that, you know, focus mostly on the comedy, the humor, and don't have as much of a strong kind of emotional storyline just aren't really as interesting to me. So this is probably why the ratings in this section are a bit lower. There was one offensively terrible film, in my opinion, which is a French film titled The Misadventures of Heidi and Cokeman. I think it's like based on a web series or something, but I just found the film really obnoxious. Everyone was just yelling all the time for no reason. Like 1% of the jokes were actually good, but most of them were just really cringy or honestly just like offensive or homophobic or whatever. And you know, the plot was fine, whatever, but I really couldn't stand watching that movie. I gave it a 6 out of 30. I'm sorry. A couple of films I thought were decent in this section, gave them 20 out of 30. One of them was a French film, Stuck Together. It's about a bunch of people stuck together in a building, like an apartment building during COVID lockdown, and kind of about all the characters like getting to know each other and the shenanigans that they get up to. I thought it was a good like kind of ensemble cast comedy film. It had a few, you know, more touching moments as well, which, you know, sold me on it, obviously. A lot of people didn't seem to like the film. I liked it. The other film I liked here was the Brazilian film Get the Goat, which is about two police officers. There's a police officer from a small town who's charged with looking after a goat, who's like the mascot of their town or something, but the goat accidentally gets stolen to the big city, and he just tries to get the goat back. It's silly, it's cute, it's funny, it's like action comedy as well. Like, I thought that film was great. Sue me. Okay, we're almost there. The next genre is romance or romantic dramas. Just so many of the tropes that happen a lot in classic romance films are just I'm over them, you know, romances that come out of nowhere, women with no agency, you know, all that kind of stuff. It's just frustrating that, you know, films are still being made like that. One of the films that I really didn't like in this section was Guise and Anne, which is like a teen romance movie. Like the parts I thought the parts that were good were like all the friends and family bits, but the actual romance plot was horrific. So the guy in the relationship, Guise, basically stalks Anne, and suddenly she's into him, like, you know, that trope. And then after that, at some point, a random guy just like proposes to Anne after they've never even dated, and she just accepts it, which doesn't make any sense. And I feel like it happens way too much in films for some reason. Yeah. Another romance film that I really didn't like for completely different reasons actually was a South African film called Happiness Ever After, which I think is the sequel to a different film. And this film was just horrible because all the characters were so unlikable. It seemed like they were so materialistic and shallow. They were all like rich, and they seemed to like not even care about their relationships or their families or anything. They just wanted to kind of go to the spa and like do yoga, and they were just like really unlikable people. I just could not stand it. Yeah, so if I had to pick a favorite film from this section, it had to be Malcolm and Marie, starring Zendaya and John David Washington. And it's a romance film in the sense that it's about two people that are in a romantic relationship, although most of the film is just them arguing and not being not being a very good example of a romantic relationship. But maybe that's why it's actually quite refreshing, and I preferred it compared to the other films in this section. Yeah, the cinematography with the whole black and white aesthetic I thought was also really cool. So yeah, if I had to pick, that's my favorite, but really didn't like this section very much at all. And finally, after all this time, we've come to the last genre, drama. In general, I feel like it's pretty difficult to make a drama film that's like offensively bad. As long as the characters kind of vaguely make sense and everything, then it's probably going to be like okay, maybe boring, but you know, fine. And my least favorite film in this section might be a bit of a controversial opinion, because I think a lot of people really like this film and I really appreciate what it was trying to do. I just thought the plot and the casting and the characters' decisions just made no sense to me. Maybe I just can't relate to that situation as well as other people can. But anyway, the film was The Unforgivable, starring Sandra Bullock, which was like a huge film on Netflix this year. I just thought so many things in that film didn't make sense. Why did they cast a 50-plus-year-old actress to play a character who I presume is like 30-something for the film to make sense? Or if the character is actually 50-something, then the film's plot makes no sense. And why is the main character's 25-year-old sister still like living with her parents, and her parents are like hiding everything about her past from her and she's not allowed to know anything? Think that the right revenge is to kill that person's innocent little sister? Like, that's insane. And at the end, after it's been revealed that it was actually the little sister, 5-year-old sister, that shot the cop, why the hell did Ruth, the adult, take the blame for that when a minor 5-year-old child wouldn't go to jail for that? They would probably get into therapy, foster care, whatever, but like, why would you do that? You're gonna get separated from her anyway. Like, at that point, there's no way that you can stay with your sister, but going to jail for 20 years versus her getting some therapy, like, what? Why was everyone so angry in that movie all the time? The communication skills were just a mess. I don't know. I just found it really frustrating. I think you can tell. I just watched that movie today and I'm still a little bit frustrated from watching it. Yeah, I get that the film was, raising light about kind of the prejudice that ex-convicts face in society, and I thought that was, that's a noble message, and it's, it's a good message, but the actual execution of the plot of the film didn't work for me. So let me just calm down and talk about the films I did like in this section. So one film I really did like that I gave 21 out of 30 was a Brazilian drama film, Seven Prisoners. It's about an 18-year-old Brazilian kid, Mateus, who lives in a poor area in the countryside, and he gets a job at a junkyard in the city. But it turns out that he's gotten himself into a little bit of a exploitative human trafficking situation. And, I don't want to spoil what happens, but I thought the film explored this, like, moral conflict in Mateus, like, really well. A lot of parts in that film were actually, like, really hard for me to watch, especially, because I kept finding myself sympathizing with the situation and just thinking, what would I do if I was in that situation too? It's quite emotionally subtle, and it's actually quite a short film. It's like only an hour and a half, and I just thought it was a really interesting look at that topic and the complexities and the emotional conflicts in that. And yeah, I 100% recommend that. Another film that I thought was really good was the Turkish drama film Paper Lives. That film follows a character named Mehmet, who is basically runs a trash disposal waste warehouse in Istanbul, and you know, his interactions with the kind of the homeless community and especially the homeless children in the area of the. I thought that one also had some beautiful cinematography of Istanbul and some great acting from the main actor there, and it's a little bit of a downer just in case you're thinking of watching it, but definitely recommend. And the last film I really liked, which I also gave 23 out of 30, was The White Tiger. It's about a guy in India, and he comes from a poor background, but he kind of cleverly maneuvers his way out of poverty, and I just thought that film was really compelling. Cinematography great, editing great. I liked that all the characters were kind of morally gray, including the protagonist, and it kind of lets you draw your own conclusions. Like, is the main character justified for what he did? Like, is he a horrible person? You know, it's an interesting movie, but it's also a fun movie. It manages to still be fun, and I like it, so. Okay, so that was a super long video. As you can see, my hair has completely dried at this point. So I try to focus on the films I actually liked. Hopefully, you know, someone else can find a film that they spend a nice evening with from this video. Or if future me is watching this, maybe have some good memories, rewatch one of these movies, you know. You know, in the last couple of years, with everyone being at home a lot, everyone's watching Netflix more than ever, I feel like, and, you know, and yeah, there's a lot of shit to wade through, but I feel like there's actually a lot of good gems in there. Interested to see what Netflix does next. I don't know if I'm gonna do the same thing with all the films that come out this year, because I don't know, this took a lot out of me, but might do it. We'll see how much free time I have. This is what my pink hair looks like, by the way. Just wanted to get this on camera before it all fades away. Just dyed it a couple of days ago. But yeah, that's it. Tell me what you thought of these films. If you think my opinions are stupid, let me know. Bye!